Greetings, grade 11. Welcome to your second lesson in economics. Our lesson today begins on the basic terms and concepts that we use in economics. Before we move over to our lesson, if we could recapitulate what we have learned in the previous lesson. To recapitulate, we learned that economics is a social science that studies the activities in an economic system. And we also understood that an economic system is a social system that makes the material requisites of day-to-day life in the form of goods and services that directly or indirectly satisfies human want. We said that an economy is a system because a system is a set of things that are working together as a part of a mechanism or an interconnecting network as a complex whole. It is also a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done in an organized manner to achieve a certain purpose. And we just said that the purpose of an economic system is to satisfy the material requirements of day-to-day life. And we also learned that the science of economics studies only activities that are concerned with the satisfaction of human wants with money and wealth, production, consumption, and distribution of economic goods. So, in the science of economics, we normally do not take account of any non-economic activities. So, today in our lesson, our objective is to understand the language that we speak in economics. And when we try to understand the language we speak in economics, the terms and concepts becomes very easy if you get a rough idea about how an economy runs. And therefore, you will understand that an economy has four basic entities, that is a consumer, producer, government, and a household. And also, you will be looking at all the economic terms that describe how these economic entities work. Now, however, before I move over to explaining to you the different economic terms, let me tell you a small story to illustrate why economic terms and economic words have a certain relevance and they are important. In the picture, you see that there is a couple who has gone to meet their relative, and their relative lives in Antarctica, in a very cold place where they see snow day in and day out. And this relative has a job that takes him to do all his work in the middle of all the snow. So when they arrive, it seems that the husband and wife exclaimed to the relative, "There is so much of snow. Look at the snow out there." And at that point of time, the relative corrected and said that this particular snow has a different name. And in fact, went on to explain that in Antarctica, there are 17 different words of snow. And that the people here in Antarctica, after living in the snow for such a long time, has begun to see the difference between the 17 different types of snow, and they have 17 words for snow. So in the same way, when we learn economics, we also understand that the words that we use on a daily basis, like want, demand, money, price, they mean something different in economics. People who study economics come to understand that there are different words which have a significant meaning in economics. So in today's lesson, which is again divided into 4 different parts, we understand the different words and the different terms that we use in economics. So moving over, what are basic entities in an economy? If you remember the example of a music system, the music system had components. There was one component that was able to take power and use the power for running the music system. There was another component that stored music and was able to play it. And the third component, which was the sound boxes, was able to throw the sound away from that particular device. So in the same way, every economy also has components. No matter how advanced they are, or no matter how developed they are or underdeveloped they are, all of the economies will have very similar components. And these components work with one another to fulfill the purpose of an economic system. And the purpose, if I remind you once more, is to fulfill the material requirements of day-to-day life. And the basic components of an economic system are known as household, producers, government, and consumers. So we look into each of these different entities one by one. And you must remember that an entity in an economic system is defined by the economic activities that they undertake. So how do you know if that particular entity is a household or a business? You will know according to the activity that they have taken. So whenever we define a consumer, we define a consumer by what it does. Whenever we define a government, we define a government by what it does. And when we look at a producer, we define a producer by what it does. So our first entity is known as a consumer. Consumers undertake the economic activity of consumption or use the goods and services that are produced in the economy. And you must remember that consumers can both be individuals or institutions. Even our school is a consumer because we buy food, we buy school uniforms, we buy stationery, books, and all of these makes us a consumer. You as an individual, you are a consumer when you go over to the market to buy different things that you require for your day-to-day life. The second entity is known as a producer. And a producer is defined as those economic entities that procure. Procure means obtain the factors of production. And factors, the meaning of factors of production are all those materials and things that you are required for production. These include land, labor, capital, and the enterprise. And they procure the factors of production and use them to produce goods and services. So, a producer, his job is to get all the factors of production, to see that all the land, all the raw material, all the machines, all the labor, they are all organized together and they use that to produce the goods and services. Our next entity is a government. A government is an economic entity that regulates and administers all the other economic entities in an economy. They look after the law and order and formulate policies for the economic system. The role of the government is to see that the economy is regulated, that it runs according to a certain objective. Like at the moment, our economy during the lockdown, the essential items were being provided, and seen that there was no scarcity of essential items by the government. But at the same time, non-essential items were kept in check. There was no unnecessary usage of non-essential items. So therefore, the government is an entity in an economy that sees that law and order is maintained. They raise taxes to see that they have revenue to carry out their activities. They provide public goods in the form of all the bridges, roads, in the form of education, in the form of sanitation. They see that the economy does not have inequality, that all income is distributed properly. They see that the markets function properly, that all of a sudden people do not lose jobs, that people's employment is maintained. They also see that the country is safe from external and internal aggression, and the number of work and the responsibility of the government is increasing day after day, year after year. The last entity that we talk about is called the household. The household supplies all the factors of production and receives the payment for the factors of production from the producers. They use the payment to receive that they have received to procure goods and services for consumption. So why are they different from consumers? Consumers are a term that is used for that entity which is only involved in the buying of goods and services. But household do not only buy goods and services, they also supply the factors of production for the production purpose. So this ends the first part of our lesson, basic terms and concepts. What we have learned in this lesson are that there are 4 different entities, and entities are described by what they do. I would like you to revise this particular lesson once more and answer the questions that are given in with this lesson. Thank you so much, and until we meet for the next lesson, see you. Thank you.